Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 word again for the race reaction for the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix, the fifth and final live stream of the weekend. Once again, before we get into anything tonight, thank you so much to everybody who's joined me for the last few streams, or the last few days. It's been a lot of fun. We've seen some drama, some excitement, some pretty dull stuff as well in the sprint, but overall a pretty good weekend. So thank you everyone for your support as always. Lots to get into tonight. Before we do get into the reaction though, there is some pretty significant breaking news. We don't usually do this, but I think it's worth a mention right at the top. Esteban Ocon will not race for Alpine at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix next week. His place will be taken by Jack Doohan, who of course is signed for the team for next year, so he gets himself in that car for an extra race. So today was that final run to turn one was Esteban Ocon's last action for Alpine. A few things flying around, but apparently it is down to the fact that he wanted to test for Haas next week, or the following week really, in Abu Dhabi in the post-season test. Spoke to Flavio Briatore about it. Flavio said, yeah, that's fine, but you know, can we arrange something? They came to an agreement effectively. And that agreement was that he wouldn't race in Abu Dhabi if he did the test for Haas at the end of the season. Ocon clearly happy to do that. That's given Jack Doohan an opportunity. So it is farewell until Australia for Esteban Ocon at Alpine. So a bit of news I wasn't expecting to start this stream off with, but that is I don't think the team have put a statement out, but that is very much what we understand as a situation. I think Ted Kravitz has pretty much confirmed it on Sky as well. So that is the situation as we sit here today. So a shame for Esteban. We'll talk about him a little bit later, of course. Not there's much to say other than about his exit, given the fact that he didn't get any further than turn one. But yeah, it is a shame for him. But it's been a rough weekend. He got that podium, of course, in Brazil, so that's something to for him to enjoy. I completely forgot to open Discord, so I'm kind of just padding now while I try and get that open so I can get over to Stuart. Classic Sean. It's been a long weekend and a lot of fun. But let's say a very, very good afternoon or evening. Sorry, evening. What day is it? To Stuart. Hello, Stuart. Did you enjoy the Qatar Grand Prix?
Oh, sorry, I realised I hadn't put my microphone on my face.
We've got off a strong start. We've had a strong
That's a good start. Yeah, sort of. Some of it. And it was a little bit dull, I think, brought to life by some pandemonium more than most things. But we still had some reasonable wheel-to-wheel racing from time. Oh, I love all your lights. Isn't that nice? So there was so much going on that I haven't managed to rewrite up all of my notes yet. So I'm going to have to wing it from some of my live notes. So we're going to have fun, aren't we?
It's going to be a lot of fun. Yes, the lights. It's December. It's Christmas. We've got to have the lights out for Christmas. Christmas in Abu Dhabi next week. That's good stuff. It'll be fun. Yes, just as of course to a heads up to everybody in chat, I mentioned in the race watch along. When I do race watch alongs, I make no notes because I'm too busy doing the race watch along. So we'll muddle through as we do. The waffle will get us through as you put it on WhatsApp, Stuart. Plenty to get into though. We'll get on to the run through. Let's get on with that one. Starting, of course, with race winner Max Verstappen. He has won the Qatar Grand Prix. Had I told you that on Saturday morning, Stuart, how hard would you have laughed in my face given where that car was? I mean, that's the story, isn't it, really, from Red Bull's weekend. What a turnaround from the team. A car that was nowhere, and Christian Horner said, we've got a mountain to climb, and whatever changes they've made, I said it twice in the watch along, write them down because they worked. What a turnaround. Great performance. Challenged a little bit by Lando Norris, but really, apart from that threat after the safety car restart, particularly after Lando got his penalty, we'll get into that later, seemed to have things under control. A cracking drive.
Yeah, I mean, you've really got to hand it to Red Bull, honestly, with what they pulled off with both cars, actually, because both cars were very much a C, I guess, up to the end of the sprint race. They didn't look that great in practice. They had a naff qualifying. Verstappen and Perez both had absolutely rubbish sprints. Perez coming last, Verstappen just about squeaky. He got 8th in the end, and he did squeak into a point, and it seemed like they were nowhere compared to everyone else. And to analyze the data, make the setup changes they needed, really understand what they needed to do and where their car was going wrong, and make those changes enough to, I mean, essentially grab pole position. I know he got his little infringement, but he did get pole position on outright merit and carry that through the race. Perez as well, getting a much better qualifying than sprint qualifying, and having a much better race up to the point where it kind of went wrong for him. as far as I understand, is out of his hands. I don't think that spin was his mistake, but I guess we'll see. I didn't manage to see anything to the contrary. This so much has happened. Getting all the information ready before the stream has been tough. I'm sure you found. Yeah, but yeah, no. Really stunning race from Red Bull, really, and not just surprising from Saturday, but just surprising in general because we really thought we weren't going to see some normal wins from Red Bull the rest of the season. Brazil, an outlier because it was exceptional circumstances and really gave Max a chance to shine in the wet. But we just weren't really expecting this. We were expecting a sort of McLaren Ferrari run to the end, and this is kind of throwing it all a bit sideways. But yeah, great win from Max. Very on the ball. Watching what's going on with. I mean,
Yes.
you got to hand it to him. I mean, he is not the first time he's on the ball with many things. He's keeping his eye on the entire race. So, yeah, I mean, nothing but praise, really.
I mean, he was annoyed, wasn't he, after qualifying with the one place grid drop that he got. I don't want to get back into that. I've had arguments in the watch alongs over this one with people who insist everything's a conspiracy. But he was frustrated there, and when Max Verstappen's frustrated, he tends to come out the next day, doesn't he, and deliver. So maybe there's part of that there. I love the on the ball stuff. A lot of people will think it's always grassing him in, but you know, it's he's out there. He reacts to a yellow flag that Anthony Davidson did the analysis that he didn't even see. He just reacted to it. You know, he backed off and then he immediately went, has everyone else backed off or did Lando back off? And that, you know, that's the mark of a champion. That's what champions do. They're on the ball all the time. They're paying attention to what's going on. But yeah, fantastic drive from Max. Not really got a lot to say. It's his 9th win of the season, which again, you're going back to that first half of the season, aren't you, really, for all those wins? And you sort of forget that he did all of that, despite the fact he's won the championship, because it's been such a crazy last few months. But it was a cracking drive. He was asked afterwards about how this compares to Brazil. What a weird question. Not the weirdest question. I think Craig Slater asking Norris if he thinks it's an opportunity missed. I mean, come on, man. Of course it is. But yeah, Max Verstappen saying, you know, no, Brazil was so much more special for so many reasons. You know, what was on the line, the drive itself. So yeah, good stuff. Like I say, I think, you know, Lando had a couple of goes, but I didn't feel like Max was under massive threat. I mean, it was very much between those two, wasn't it? If it was going to be a battle for the win today, but really good drive. Kind of just cements his championship even further. He can have some fun in Abu Dhabi, which he's probably done this weekend as well. Maybe that's what it is. Relaxed a bit now, can do as he likes. You know, just going to cruise around now and win this one. So the only thing I will say is I think I don't think it's mathematically that they're out of the question for second place, but Red Bull are pretty much all but confirmed in third now in the Constructors. I think mathematically they could if Ferrari have a stinker and they get a 1-2, which is unlikely, or something like that. There's a lot of things that would have to happen. So it is between McLaren and Ferrari in the finale. But Christian Horner did say post-race that, you know, silver lining or looking at the better side of it, it's extra wind tunnel time with the new regulations on the horizon. So, you know, again, silver lining for Red Bull, but cracking drive from Max. Not got a lot to say. It was one of those. Do you remember these from last year, Stuart, or earlier in the season when we'd be like, oh, Max Verstappen won, but kind of not an awful lot to say, really. He just kind of did his job. So you've touched on Perez there. I'll be honest, I'm a bit gutted. I think, you know, he was a long way off the leaders. I get that. But compared to how he's performed on a lot of Sundays recently, I think he was doing okay, and it was a much better performance. And I thought, you know, it may only be top 6, or if it ends up being top 5, we'll see how it goes. And that's a really good turnaround for Checo, given everything that happened earlier in the weekend. The fact he was using the sprint as a bit of a test, that's a bit embarrassing, you know. Being able to turn that around on the Sunday, that would have been fantastic for him. But then a mechanical issue. I'm with you. I'm not sure. I'm sure chat will tell us. I'll wait for a press release, but I'm not sure if it was the mechanical fault, the losing drive that put him in the spin, or whether he spun and then he lost drive and it was all just a big coincidence. I don't know, but I did wonder if it's a bit like, it's not the same thing because the car shut off in Bahrain in 22, but a bit like that where the car went wrong and he just pitched it round and that was game over. But a shame for Checo. One of his stronger Sundays, I guess, is what I'm saying of late, Stuart, but still can't catch a break when he is performing. Bless him. Or performing better, I should say, not performing. That would be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, and a bit of a space, really, because he struggles more with turning things around from a bad result than like Verstappen did. Verstappen, you know, he lost his pole some drivers get a bit demotivated, but he came back furious and turned that into performance. Perez can sometimes let things sit with him, and that affects him. But actually, he turned what was a dismal Friday, Saturday into a good race. He was as high as fifth. He was sitting fifth at the second restart because we had that early safety car that I kind of forgot about until I was writing my notes up right at the beginning. But yeah, that safety car after all the debris on track, he was when he retired before they got to the to the actual restart. Yeah, he was sitting fifth. It would have become fourth with Norris's penalty, which would have been good for him. And I think would have been one of those results that might confused Red Bull enough into giving him another year or two in the car by accident. But it would have been the kind of result he needed. And I think if it's a mechanical failure, if that's what it is, if it was out of his hands, then it's still, I think, the kind of day he needed just to demonstrate there is something there. I think far too little, too late. But yeah, I am a bit gutted for him that it didn't work out. But it was a funny day at the office.
Yeah, he kept himself. Apart from that, he kind of kept himself out of trouble, didn't he? He wasn't involved in anything dramatic. There was a gap to those ahead and a gap to those behind. But after Lewis Hamilton sort of started to fall away, that was their little battle for a while. But not an eventful race for Checo until it all sort of started to kick off and all fell apart for him. So I'll keep an eye out for that press release if it was anything. Whether they're connected or separate things. I mean, surely they're connected. That'd be one heck of a coincidence, wouldn't it? Although it would be very in keeping with the way luck can go for drivers sometimes. But Lucas says Perez burned his clutch while turning the car in third gear. That caused his car to break down. That's from Lucas. So if that's the case, then it's his mistake, I suppose. So we'll have to retract that. But we don't know sat here right now. I'm sure Red Bull will confirm. I'll check the social, Stuart, while you say what you were just going to say.
Yeah, I love how you can tell that I'm just taking a little deep breath to butt in. It hasn't appeared on the decision documents, but I did note on the multi-viewer feed that after the race, a little steward's pop-up came up that said, turn 14 incident, which is where he went off, involving car 11 Perez, will be investigated after the race, dangerous driving. So I don't know if it was, his little spin around into traffic that they're going to investigate. But again, that note hasn't yet appeared on, as far as I can tell, on the decision documents on the FI website. But, another thing to keep our eye out for, I guess.
Yeah, maybe an unsafe... No, it would say unsafe rejoin, wouldn't it, if it was an unsafe rejoin? They tend to say that. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Well, that's an interesting one. But, a decent drive from Perez to a point. I can't get excited by it, but it was nice to see him in Q3 and at least in the sort of mid phase of the points. I'm trying so hard to sell this as a positive. I really am. When his teammates just got off and won the race, and I know his teammate's Max Verstappen, but a big day. I have seen the stat in chat a couple of times now. As a fun fact, people are saying, so that's their words, not mine. Zhou Guanyu has now scored more points in the last 4 races than Sergio Perez. So maybe he's off for the seat. Oh, there you go.
Why not? Yeah. At this point.
How Red Bull like to sign up a driver after one race. So maybe Zhou Guanyu gets a seat. But the point was put to Christian Horner very quickly on this. We talked about it a lot over the weekend. I'll just go back to a picture of Perez. But there was... Christian Horner was asked about what happens now. I think the point Simon Lazenby was sort of making to Horner was maybe with one race to go, is Checo going to make a decision about his future? Do you think he should make that decision about his future, what he wants to do? And Christian Horner says something very interesting, or I think it was interesting. They were talking about his future, and Horner said, Sergio Perez, Checo will make the decision that Checo wants to make. And that really intrigued me, and not a lot of people picked up on that, I don't think. They didn't seem to give that, how I like to read way too much into one sentence. But I do wonder if the conversation behind the scenes is a little bit, come on, Checo, we're going to have to move you on. Why don't you do this on your terms? Trying to encourage him a bit to go for retirement, and that's why we've gone from we'll make a decision to Checo will make the decision he needs to make when he needs to make it. That could just mean in general he will choose to retire in 3 years' time if he wants to. But I just found that interesting. I haven't got the exact quote in front of me. I meant to write it down and completely forgot because I was messing about with pictures and things and tables. But I found that interesting, Stuart. And I do wonder if there's maybe a couple of conversations going on behind the scenes, people at the top saying we need to do something, and Christian Horner maybe going, come on, Checo, you've had such an incredible career. You've been amazing for us in 21 and at times in 22 and in 23. You had your moments too. You've won races. Let's do this the nice way, I suppose, is what I'm getting at. I don't know if you picked up on that quote, Stuart, or whether I'm reading too much into it, which is very possible. It's very possible.
I did hear Christian say that. I think it's not unfair to read what he said as to like, by the time we get to March, we're going to put someone else in your seat. So it's up to you how we manage this, I guess. And, you've alluded a lot over the last few months that Checo's probably, well, I mean, first of all, probably trying to hang on to that seat. But second of all, if he doesn't get that seat, trying to force them into buying him out with as much cash as he can get his hands on, I guess, from that deal, because he does have a contract with that team. So they are going to need to pay to get him out of that seat. So we'll see how it goes. I think I kind of agree with you that maybe Perez is just being canny in trying to force them to, I guess, do it as painfully as possible. But it's going to leave him high and dry for a seat next year, I suspect, either way.
Yeah, I mean, I said to you in the week, maybe he could be in contention after a sabbatical for a seat with Cadillac, him or Bottas alongside someone like Herta, bring their experience to the team, but that's a long way off. That's obviously pure speculation. And it's an interesting point. I mean, where are you? Nilesh just said in chat, it's in Perez's monetary interest to get bought out. Maybe there is an agreement. I'm not going to throw it. These are not the numbers I know. These are just random numbers. But if it's going to cost 20 million to buy him out of the contract, maybe they could say, look, if we pay you 10 and then you announce that you're leaving, there might be a bit of bargaining to do there, but also we know Red Bull can be brutal. But again, we're not saying any more on that because we talked about it loads this weekend. But I guess the overarching theme here is congratulations to Max Verstappen, already champion. We already knew that, of course. Big win today against all the odds. I honestly, when I did the preview on Thursday, I didn't even think about Red Bull in the mix at all. I didn't quite put them as fourth fastest, but I thought they'd be in a battle with Mercedes. Then I didn't expect George Russell to be as strong as he was. So there we go. I thought it was McLaren v Ferrari with McLaren cruising, and that's not how it turned out in the end. So kind of a bonkers weekend. But congratulations to Max. Commiserations to Checo. Hopefully, because I don't know about anybody else, but I'm kind of sick of talking about it. Hopefully, we'll get a decision on his seat in the near future. I would like one final point. I would prefer it to be announced, if it's going to be announced, before Abu Dhabi, because I'd like to be able to give Checo a proper send-off, because that's one thing that frustrated me with the Daniel Ricciardo situation. I know contractual things, commercial rights and all of that, they had to take that into consideration, but the fact that they didn't get a proper send-off and that kind of embarrassing thing at the end of Singapore where Daniel Ricciardo was basically like, yeah, I'm gone, doing all the sad stories and the farewells, and we're all like, well, it's not official yet. So that was just stupid. So I get that things are complicated, but I'd like that decided either way. It's not going to be. It'll be after Abu Dhabi unless Checo makes the call. So we shall see on that one. Second place today was Charles Leclerc. So on to Ferrari. I don't know what to say really. 6 seconds off Max Verstappen. Kind of a little bit, I wouldn't say no man's land, but he kind of got caught, I'm going to say almost DRS train-esque, didn't he really? You sort of have Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Piastri, all kind of in a line, or not always in DRS, but kind of always sort of around there. And then he fell back a little bit and then came back again. And then everything kind of worked out from the end. He managed to take second place. Obviously, Norris getting the penalty, was running third before that. So a good drive from Charles Leclerc and kind of doing what Ferrari needed him and Carlos Sainz to do today and pick up points, or as many points as possible. They probably weren't going to challenge Max. That was shown at the end. I mean, final lap alone, 23.7 versus 23.5. So he was sort of pushing back, but Max is cruising at that point. So, Leclerc, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I can't think of the word I'm looking. It's a good word. You'll love it when it comes out. It's a great word.
Can't wait.
No, it's gone. It's gone. Delivering, that'll do. Delivering what he needed to is my point there. Carlos Sainz a little bit disappointing down in 6th place, but obviously had that puncture. Not his fault. We're going to get onto that in just a moment with the... I think we'll do that with Norris when we talk about the safety car stuff. That makes sense because that's kind of a knock-on effect there, wasn't it? So... but yeah, the puncture kind of ruined him there, but did well to recover to 6th place. I just think... I think what it is, Stuart, the reason I'm struggling to kind of sum up Ferrari here is I'm trying very hard not to get excited because I know 21 points is still a lot, but, this is their weakest of the final 3 tracks. They think they'll be stronger in Abu Dhabi. Could they do it? Am I allowed to get excited? Or do we need McLaren to just, frankly, shit the bed, basically, in Abu Dhabi?
I mean, I think they can do it. Yes, it will depend on circumstances. It'll depend on what McLaren are able to do. We know McLaren have, I mean, I guess it's fair to say have gone slightly off the boil from their peak. They're not ending this year on a high. I mean, they had a very good sprint. They had some, their sprint qualifying and sprint were very good this weekend. But as I think Norris said, I'm not going to. This is the McLaren section, but Norris said that's where they peaked early in the weekend. They sort of hit their limit, whereas others were continued to develop over the weekend as Ferrari sort of did. They have consistently over the last 5 weekends. I made a note of this. I skeeted it, but Ferrari was sort of like against McLaren was sort of like plus 15, plus 20, plus 12. They were like consistently eating into their lead. So it's it's not out of the realms of possibility that they can have a good one if Abu Dhabi's the kind of track for them. If they get a 1-2 and maybe get a Verstappen stuck in the middle there, it is very much game on. It's not a right, even though McLaren have like a pretty good margin to them at the moment. So don't give up yet. They basically need to just 21 points. 21 points is very doable. It's not out of the realms of possibility, and I'm sure we'll be reminded many times of the combinations that can lead to that. So, yes, we'll keep eyes on them. As for Leclerc this race, yeah, I agree with you. He sort of had a solid race, probably wasn't where he expected to be going into the weekend. I think he would expect to be a bit stronger. He seemed to be just sort of fighting for that 3rd place through the race. And I mean, let's be honest, I think got a few things gifted to him. Russell had a terrible stop, and I think stopped way too early as well. He gained another stop through the sort of safety car pit phases, and then of course Norris got the penalty. So a few things sort of went his way to give him that second, which is why it sort of surprisingly turned up at the end with some silverware, some good silverware. Without as much sort of calamity and mistakes from others, I think he might well have been off the podium. So I think they're very glad for what they got, and I think especially and Sainz as well, actually, considering the nightmare he went through. But yeah, I mean, we've spoken about this many times. I think even if you're not on the best form of your life, being able to just get as much as you possibly can from your circumstances is important, and that's what they've done this weekend. And they've not only stayed in the title fight with McLaren. Some of us were thinking McLaren were going to wrap this up this weekend, being an expected strong track for them. They've actually closed up a little bit more. So dare to dream, Ferrari fans.
I mean, really important point to make here. If you look at the picture on the stream, how drunk does Charles Leclerc look there? Sorry. Really drunk on that P2 is Charles. Sorry, that was, Nick says, how did Charles pass Piastri? I don't remember. I think I was messing about with something on the stream at the time. I remember that.
I was just thinking that while you were talking and I was preparing my thing to say, and it seemed to happen through the pit stops in that safety car period when everyone stopped after the debris. That's when they seemed to swap places. I didn't see it on track, but it seemed to be a pit stop swap.
There we go. Safety car, John Jones says, yes. Of course, he would have pissed on the safety car and that would have been a much quicker stop, wouldn't it? So, good stuff from Charles today. Like you say, maybe a little bit fortunate, but I won't say the line. You know the line by now, so it's fine. But good stuff. But Carlos Sainz down in 6th place. Obviously, the puncture is what hampered him, but I don't. They were kind of sort of not exactly matching each other's pace, but they're kind of on the same pace, weren't they, Ferrari, for quite a good chunk of that. Leclerc and Sainz, they sort of were kind of pulling each other along to those ahead, as I recall. So I think they were sort of bringing themselves into play, but they needed something like a safety car to swing this today, and that's what they got. So a cracking job. But frustration for Carlos Sainz. I'm hoping he can go out with a bang. Well, I want him to go out with a bang, but not that kind of bang. I know his tyre exploding, but that wasn't good for him, obviously. But I still think they could be pretty happy with that. I'm a little bit surprised, and I don't know if this is because of the nature of the track, or whether we need to give more credit to Gasly, or whether Sainz just didn't have the pace or had a bit of damage maybe from the puncture. I don't know. But I was really surprised Sainz didn't get Gasly in the end. I thought that was going to be pretty much nailed on. But Gasly's pace late on was matching. Obviously, they was together on track, so it would be, but they're very much matching each other, and he seemed to place his car in the nice place. We'll get on to Gasly shortly, of course, but I know it's a tough track to pass on one DRS, so maybe, contributes to that a little bit, but I did think Sainz would catch him and breeze past, and he didn't. So, do you know what? We'll be positive. We'll give the credit to Gasly for that. But yeah, sixth place is still decent, all things considered, for Sainz. But I do feel, there were more points on the table today, but it's not his fault that he got a puncture. Again, we'll get into that very, very shortly, I'm sure. And third place on the podium, the final step on the podium was Oscar Piastri, of course. So McLaren, Oscar Piastri. I think through this weekend at the front, it's been Oscar Piastri and Russell battling for quite a lot of it, haven't they? And following each other, always seem to find each other on track. So he was kind of the threat early on for George, and then George made his stop and had the slow stop, which sort of brought him out of contention at that point. But that was a not quite as fun as the sprints, but it was still some jeopardy there between the two of them. So I was a bit disappointed Piastri couldn't take that to Russell a bit more, get some side by side action or more of it. But that's been quite a fun little squabble this weekend, Russell and Piastri, whether it's in the sprint or in the race itself. But third place today, it's funny how it's worked out, and it's not worked out how maybe it would have done earlier in the race. But P3 is about what I expected for his whole race. You look at that early stint, threatening George Russell for P3. You thought he might have the pace to do it. Then he gets the help with George's pit stop and a slow pit stop. That puts him there. Then the safety car helps him out, and he still somehow ends up third. So I don't know how to sum up Piastri's race at all there, really, other than just, yes, third is about what I expected. But a good drive from Oscar again, and he's had a good weekend. And obviously, yesterday's shenanigans got him a sprint win again, the only driver to win the sprint in Qatar, of course. 2 in a row for him. So yeah, good stuff from Piastri today, and a really good weekend from him. But I think of the two drivers, and that was think with an F, by the way, I think with the two drivers, Norris probably had the edge on pace, but Piastri picked up the points where he needed to, ultimately, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think Piastri was faster than Russell today. I think being held up by him in the first 24 laps hampered him a fair bit. If you look at the sort of the race trace lap chart thing, but Russell was dropping back from Norris and Piastri was staying with him, just couldn't get past. And actually, that's the same story if you look at, as you were just talking about, Sainz and Gasly. Gasly was the one who was sort of holding Sainz up, and they couldn't get past. Funny track this, because it is very difficult to overtake. It's not designed to be an F1 track. It's designed to be a bike track, so there's not a lot of like straights into hard stops and tight corners that sort of allow overtakes. Normally we've just really got that turn one. They shorten the DRS zone, so there were some circumstances like this where you had what seemed to be a demonstrably faster car behind a car in front, unable to get past. But then again, there were other times when cars seemed to be having great battles into turn one through turn two and sort of fighting it out and stuff. So, I guess your mileage varies depending on what the battle is. I guess you need maybe a certain discrepancy in performance. But it is interesting that Piastri was stuck behind Russell today, and Russell was stuck behind him yesterday. Just the way things work out, I guess. I wonder if maybe they shortened the DRS zone a little bit too much. But onto the point of Piastri, yeah, kind of a solid day. He probably would have expected a little bit more, considering the McLarens were pretty fast. I think Norris was as fast as Verstappen. We can't tell how much Verstappen was sort of pacing himself and keeping the measure of things, but essentially they were running at the same pace when they had the free air, and it would have been a McLaren double podium if things had gone a bit normally and Piastri hadn't been stuck and all that. So yes, I think he's going to be like, sure, third place, that's great, and like you, I guess that's what I would have got normally. I just got it in abnormal circumstances. I think he's probably going to try and go for something big next weekend, because he needs to just kind of establish himself for next year. Not put the team title at risk, because that's, as we just spoken, still very much on the table. But yeah, I think he needs to just um, uh, lay down a marker that he's number one, which he didn't do this weekend.
Yeah, that's a great fight next year. I can't wait for anyway, full stop, to be honest. But yeah, if he can get a win in Abu Dhabi, that'd be great. Yeah, I think that's just how I would sum it up as just he ended up where I expected him to be and where he kind of looked like he was going to be all race despite all the chaos. So I suppose a lot of credit there. Consistent, that'll do. We'll use that one. But yeah, no, good stuff from Piastri overall, and important actually, because if he'd had a bad day today, things would look even bleaker for McLaren in the constructors, or not bleaker, but they would start to look bleak for McLaren in the constructors, because of course Sainz then moves up to 5th place, doesn't he? And it's another couple of points, and it takes points away from McLaren as well. So good that he got things right today, Piastri. Like I agree though, like I say, Norris, the quicker of the two this weekend. So hopefully we'll lay down a marker in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, we've talked like all weekend about how I feel about Piastri, so we'll not go into that one. Lando Norris, then we'll get to this one. Behave, chat. Most of you will be great, I'm sure. But you know, whenever we talk about these things, then it all kicks off. So be good. Tough race. Well, no, good race. Sort of challenging Max, staying close to him, sort of around a second, 2 seconds behind him. Maybe some time management early on. I don't know. That's what I speculated about on the stream earlier. Sort of challenged him at the safety car restart. Apparently Christian Horner saying something about the safety car lights didn't go out, which caused some confusion, which is why Max was then threatened into turn one, which was another mistake by the sounds of it from race control this weekend, because they've obviously got to send a message to the safety car, haven't they, to turn the lights off, unless Lando just forgot. These things happen. So yeah, that's one to bear in mind. We'll probably talk about that in a moment. But a penalty for failing to slow for double waved yellows, and what's caused a lot of controversy here. There are two things. Sky are furious that Lando Norris got a 10-second stop go penalty. A lot of people on social media, I've not been on Twitter, I imagine it's a hellhole, as it always just generally is, isn't it? You say morning to somebody, you get shouted at. So so I imagine that's pretty bad. But the controversy really was cleared up for me by Anthony Davidson, who did his SkyPad analysis, because I thought, and we were watching it on the stream, that he went past a single waved yellow. So obviously, yellow flag or not, you still need to slow down. They're the rules. Safety, you must slow down for a yellow flag. But the fact it was double waved, I thought that's weird. But then Anthony Davidson went back and looked at it again, and it's actually from a different lap. We weren't shown that on the broadcast. There were double waved yellows, and so it is a slam dunk penalty. He's gone past double waved yellows. He's got the penalty for that, for failing to slow down. He himself, I mean, he said in his post race stuff, which I think was good to hear him say before I went live, before we get into this too much, but he kind of said, you know, I'm not stupid. If I'd seen yellow flags, I would have slowed down for them. So that's, you know, he knows that he needs to slow down for them. But then he says, if I was speeding or I didn't slow down, then it is a fair penalty. So he's described the penalty for double waved yellows, the 10-second stop go penalty. When was the last time we had one of those? As a fair penalty, if he, you know, basically a fair cop. If I was speeding, I didn't see the flags, but if I was, then that's a penalty. And he sort of accepted that. So frustrating for him. And a lot of people are saying, it's a really harsh penalty and all of this. And it is a big penalty when you look at some of the driving we've seen at times this year and in recent years in Formula One. But, you know, Anthony Davidson made, and I know people hate the phrase rules are rules, but Anthony Davidson made the point, you know, the stewards will go, oh, he didn't slow down for double waved yellows. Right, get the rule book out. What does it say? 10-second stop go penalty. That's what they have to give him. They have to give him that. This isn't the same as yesterday with Verstappen, where he got the one-place penalty. The International Sporting Code allowed that to be the case. But when it comes to not slowing down, you know, failing to slow for double waved yellows, that's the penalty they have for that. And that's kind of where we're at. And Stuart's going to tell me I'm wrong now.
No, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. And I think the key thing here is yes, that's the penalty for it, and there is a reason there's the penalty for it, because double wave yellows means there's a serious incident on track. There could be a car, there could be debris, there could be marshals. You know, as a driver, you don't know what a double yellow means. You just know it's serious and you need to slow down. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter if they accidentally leaned on the button that activated double waved yellows. Like it doesn't matter what all the track is, because I think there maybe is an argument to be made that double waved yellows was a weird thing to have out for what was actually happening. But it doesn't matter because if a driver sees double wave yellows, he or she needs to know there's something serious on track. I need to slow down. I need to take this seriously. And if you don't do that, that is a serious violation. So yeah, the penalty is right. I don't think the penalty is harsh for failing to observe double yellow flags. I think that needs to be strict because all drivers need to make sure they slow down for yellow flags, or at least acknowledge that something's going on, even if you just lift a little bit and be more aware of your circumstances. Um, I think I think it's a big failing of Lando to have not spotted that there were double yellow flags because, um, as we saw in Anthony Davison's replay, or if you look back at the replays, Verstappen spotted it, and they came out later for him because he was further up the road. So they only just came out as physical flags in the corner of his eye as he sort of went past, and he still noted that was happening and lifted off, and then noted that Lando seemed to be closer to him in the next few corners, so that's why he flagged that up with the team. For me, I guess the controversy is what the race director actually did with the debris that was on the track, because it seemed misguided. I don't know if you want to talk about that now in the McLaren segment while we're doing this penalty thing, but there was some debris on track. Some single yellows came out, then they went away again, then they came back again. They seemed to go on and off for a little bit, which was kind of confusing. Then the double wave yellows flags came out, but sort of in perpetuity because they weren't clearing up the mess. So it seemed like they were just really hesitating and not being like forthwith on how they were dealing with this debris. It seemed clear to me as an outsider sitting in my armchair. You throw a virtual safety car, neutralize the race, get someone to run out there when there's a gap in traffic and clear it up and then get the race underway. What did happen was it got left out there and then someone hit it, and then we don't know for sure, but 2 punctures immediately followed that, with the mirror smashed all over the car. There's a possibility that was the result of that. And then we had to have a full safety car to deal with all that mess. So that it was just kind of badly handled. Russell said the cars were too sort of evenly spread out for a virtual safety car to give a gap for the marshals. It wasn't serious enough for a full safety car. So that's where he sympathizes with the race director, I guess. But again, the consequences were we ended up having a full safety car because it kind of created a puncture creating incident. Andreas Stella, who the team principal of McLaren, said the rule book is covered in dust and was written. He was sort of exaggerating, but he's sort of written centuries ago, and it isn't sort of up to date, and that actually we need to take a critical approach with penalties and stuff like that. And I don't agree with that because penalties are penalties, but maybe we do need to. I don't know. Think about the regulations a little bit more because this weekend has been a bit weird with regulations. So yeah, this is where I stand. I think the debris on track was badly managed, and it led to possibly even more dangerous situations than needed to. I think Norris's penalty was justified. So I kind of went on a big circle there. Hopefully that all makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to be fair here.
And that's why you're perfect for the channel. We'll go the long way around, but we'll get there. It doesn't matter, does it? No, I think Andrea Stella was interesting because he was talking as well about, maybe introducing an element of, this penalty will be decided on not just what he did, but also how dangerous the situation was. But i.e., it was only debris on the track, so the penalty could have been lighter. I hate the idea of throwing in individual interpretation into something like that, because what somebody might look at it and go, well, that marshal's far enough off track, and somebody else might say, oh, it's only a rabbit. Do you know what I mean? I think that's so dangerous if you're going to throw an individual interpretation to a safety situation like that. The double waved yellows are double waved yellows. He's not slowed. He's accepted that himself. If that's the case, the penalty is justified. It seems like a harsh penalty because it's been a long time since we've had them. But this is what you always used to get. You used to blinking the wrong way or whatever, and you get a drive through or a stop go. This is how they used to be. So it's weird seeing it, but if that's what the rule book says, then they've got to follow that. I think one other thing as well, and I'm not making an excuse for the FIA, and I'll read some comments in a minute, but I'm not going to make an excuse for the FIA, or for Rui Marquez, but I also think this is kind of a symptom of what happens if you sack your longer term race director before the final 3 races of the season and keep sacking people in the FIA because you want to flex your muscles and make the point that you're in charge, which is how I view it with MBS, let's say. So you're going to start swapping race directors out and all of that. And I don't know what the stewards were this weekend, whether we had Gary Connolly, didn't we? And Derek Warwick, I think, was in as well this weekend. So I don't know who else there was or whether there's anyone new there. But, I feel a bit for Rui Marquez. And again, it's easy saying this from the comfort of our own home without all the information in front of us, but and without our necks on the line. But I think some sort of safety car. It's all right saying George saying it doesn't warrant a full safety car, but if it's a safety issue and a virtual safety car won't work, then surely it has to be a safety car, whether it warrants it or not. If that debris scattered to a point where, the field is spread to a point where a virtual safety car won't work, then it has to be a safety car, in my eyes. So that for me that's the bigger frustration for me than any kind of penalty Norris got. If he's speeding under double waved yellows, I'm sorry, that's it. You're going to get a penalty. Mm-hmm. It's a big penalty. I know that, and it will seem harsh, but if that's what the rule book says, that's what the rule book says. It's the management of the situation. We were on the watch along. If anyone goes back to watch that waffle for however long we were live, I say it at the time. Surely we need a safety car for this, or a virtual safety car, or something. And then I was maybe saying maybe they can't because of where the debris is. Can they get over the pit wall, for example? But I think, and I wanted to read this from Purple Zebra because a few people have made the point about should the flags have been there or not, and you kind of made the point as well, Stuart. That Purple Zebra has made, but they've said it's not a driver's job to judge whether the flag should or shouldn't be there or whether it's actually safe or not to lift. It's a driver's job to obey the flags. That's the underlining fact here.
Agree.
It's not about but it's only a bit of debris, so I'll keep my foot down. I'm not saying that's what Lando said, but I'm just saying you can't have that argument if the rules say it's double waved yellows, speeding in the pit lane. They're rules that you don't mess about with, and they have to be hard and fast rules. So it's hard on Lando. If he genuinely didn't see them, I'm with you, Stuart. I'm not sure on that. But then if I was in his position, I'd probably say, I didn't see them, Guv. I'd be exactly the same. So I kind of get that. And Jonty says, you're right, Sean, but we've had dozens of cases of failing to slow with resulted in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, deleted laps or reprimands. As you know, John, I won't have all the examples in front of me, Jonty, so I'll take your word on that 5 and 10 second one. I think the lap times and reprimands tend to be practiced and qualifying, don't they? More than anything, but I'm not sure on the 5 and 10 seconds in race. I can't think off the top of my head when that didn't happen. Sorry, X just sent me an email. Do you want something to premium? No, really not. Anyway, sorry, Jonty, I've completely forgot what I was saying now, but you've known me long enough, mate. You've known me long enough. So that's kind of the point. And John will say the term "not serious enough for a safety car" should not exist in a race director's vocabulary. It's there to fully neutralise without going red flag. It's the ultimate fail-safe when there's any doubt. That's it for me. This feels too spread out for a virtual safety car. Well, then it has to be a safety car. Or could we introduce a rule where, could drivers have gone through the pit lane, but then they're still going to be racing to a point, aren't they? Not in the pit lane, but on the way out. And it just, to me, that's the bit that frustrates me more than anything else today. I was really shocked to see the words "stop go penalty." I just can't think of the last time we had one, and then drive through as well for Lewis Hamilton for pit lane speeding, which was we've had drive throughs more recently, but I feel like that was usually a 10-second penalty.
Yeah, I am curious about that. Obviously none of us had time to go back through like the annals of penalties to find out you're not slowing down for yellow flags and whether that's consistent with things going back. I can defer to Jonty on that kind of thing and things. And drive-throughs are quite rare these days, though I feel like I have seen drive-throughs, but again, we don't have the data in front of us to just correlate that with what that was given for. This is sort of reminded me, and I occasionally make this argument when things happen that very much make the case for it. And I think I made this. Do you remember that race in Japan a few races back that didn't actually make full distance, and Sainz, I think, had crashed, and cars were going past the crane and all that kind of thing. There was a lot of controversy around that. Why F1 doesn't have a system like other race series where the race director can communicate directly with the drivers through the radio and just manage the race a little bit, because we could have had a virtual safety car plus instructions from the race director to stay firmly to the left-hand side of the pit straight so marshals can come out. Something like that. Again, it's not me for judge if that's the safe way to do it, but that, things like that, or virtual safety car, but direct them to go through the pits or something, where the race director can actually just be more specific about how he expects drivers to maneuver through certain areas where there may be dangers around, or to alert them to things just officially. And it's weird we don't have that, and we have a sort of system of like emails and messages and stuff through the teams. But I feel if the race director could just talk to the drivers when he needs to do an en masse directive, I think that would make things a lot easier. I don't know. It's weird we don't have that. Yeah, and it works well as far as I understand.
A few people mentioned last time stop goes. Lee says that last stop go 21 Latifi and Mazepin. Stop go for Lewis at Monza, of course, for a close pit lane in 2020. Yes, that's a good point. Jonty said the last drive-through for speeding was Ocon. He got one speeding for the 10-second time penalty after his team got the 5-second penalty wrong. Oh, yeah. Oh, poor Esteban, yeah. Dell says, so is every... I've lost you now, Dell. You've gone. Is every piece of debris off the line a safety car then? Come on, Dell. You know what we're saying. No, that's not... You judge it by... you judge every single individual case. And I'd also say that mirror was off the racing line, but that is also where cars pull out to start and overtake into turn one. So it was off the racing line, but it was also in the firing line. So you know what we're saying, Dell. I like the attention all teams in Formula E. Says that, yeah, attention all teams. Yeah, full course yellow in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, no, yeah. Is that the first? So yeah, I think I think a lot of the chat seem to be kind of agreeing as well. The penalty is by the letter of the law justified, as hard as it may seem to some people, but a lot of people are just frustrated with the time of the safety car. But also, as always in these streams, Stuart, none of us really have the answer, the solution, because it's not our job, is it, first of all, but also it kind of underlines how difficult this is for race control. But I just on the penalty thing very quickly, then we're going to move on, because we've not really talked about this race, just the incident really. I don't want to sound too much like Sky and go on about it all night, but I do wonder as well if Rui Marquez may have said to, as the race director, this is how I want you to apply the rules. I want you to be giving the penalty, because he could have come in and done it differently to Niels Vitic, who would have done it differently to Eduardo Freitas and dare I say Michael Massey and anybody else. So maybe he's come in and said, look, these are the penalties. I want you to apply them by the book. And that's why we got the place grid drop yesterday, because that allowed that, and he didn't feel that was enough for a 3-place grid drop, but he wanted to do something. So yeah, I know he doesn't make the decision, it's the stewards that make the call, but the race director, I guess, is head of the stewards almost, isn't he? He's kind of the big boss man, let's put it that way. So he may have said at the start of the weekend, or in Vegas even, this is how I want the penalties to be applied. But at the same time, it would be nice if there's a bit more transparency on that, so we know what to expect. But I don't know what the answer is, Stuart, to be honest. Consistency would be nice, wouldn't it?
Consistency is the key. Consistency and transparency, and sometimes they are good at that. They're not, they're not completely opaque and off the wall and making different decisions race to race. But sometimes it does strike as a bit off. I just want the last thing I want to say on this, because I've just remembered, because Naomi Schiff brought it up on the drive-through for Lewis. It's there are like bands of speeding in the pit lane. In terms of how much you and she said if he sped between this amount of kilometers now and this amount of kilometers now, then that's when a drive-through is warranted. So that's probably why he got that. Just to clear that up.
12.5 kilometers an hour over, which
is a lot, because it's normally like 1 or 2, and that's just because he didn't turn his pit limiter off and didn't realize.
That makes sense. Well, that'll make the Lewis Hamilton conversation easier in a bit, then, won't it, when we move on to the next point? But yeah, overall on Lando Norris, frustrating for him for the penalty, but he's kind of accepted that's just what it is. Prior to that, good couple of moments with Max, some side-by-side stuff. Good, hard, clean race. Well, not hard and fair racing is what I would say between the top front, and actually Piastri and Leclerc as well. I think it was had a good fight as well. So not really much to add. Again, Craig Slater asked the daft question: do you think it's a missed opportunity? And even he was like, "Well, of course it was a missed opportunity." So yeah, disappointed, but what I will say is a good comeback from that to get to P10 and get the point for fastest lap. And I will say, I pointed out on the watch long as well, he dropped down to 15th place as he crossed the line. This is how much quicker he was than everybody else. As he crossed the line to finish 10th, he was 14.4 seconds clear of Bottas, and on the final laps was 4 seconds quicker than him. He was quicker than the leaders, he was quicker than everybody, so he was giving it everything on those after his penalty. So credit where it's due for that, but obviously his mistake for not slowing down. So that rules him out of driver of the day talk if he was even in it. So there you go. Let's move on to Mercedes and George Russell, who a bit like Oscar Piastri, probably ended up about where he looked like he was going to end up at times during that race, which is P4 today. Very unfortunate with the long stop, the right rear slow off. That was a 7-second pit stop for him. Did well to recover from that. Obviously helped a little bit, like a lot of people were today, with the safety car timings and things like that. But a decent drive from George. I think obviously when you start pole position, end up 4th place in the end of the race, it doesn't look great. But when you look at his race as a whole, everything going on, the chaos as well, the fact that McLaren I think was faster today, his pit stop as well, like I already mentioned. That's a decent drive from George come the end of it all. So and good points as well. I think really for me, George Russell has been arguably one of the drivers of the week, or the surprise drivers of the weekend. I didn't expect, much like with Red Bull, that Mercedes would be on the pace this weekend, and George Russell just has been. He's been pretty rapid compared to what I expected. So a decent result for George, but I think I'd imagine, I've not read the quotes yet, but I'd imagine he's pretty frustrated. Even though the way his race panned out, he still picked up a good result, all things considered. It is still pole to 4th, isn't it? And that's never going to feel good as a racing driver, whatever the reason for it.
No. And I think it was clear the race pace wasn't there in the way that he was able to deliver in quali. So I think I'd be glad if he got back to 4th. Obviously, that pit stop kind of ruined things. But unbeknownst to him, I think that early stop would still have cost him time because everyone else, well, pretty much everyone else, made their stop through that safety car period. So yeah, he did well. He fought back. He made some moves. He did some great defending. And as we sort of mentioned it quite a few times, sort of Mercedes are not really in any particular hunt for anything. So I think he's just getting as many points as possible. He's leading the team well. Continues to, I think, shine in a car that's unpredictable. I think he's doing the best he can. I'm not sure if I agree with what Button said at the start of this race, and he said the top 3 on the grid are the top 3 drivers this season, the ones that are the strongest and have shone the most. Would I put Russell in that bracket? I'm not sure. I think that's maybe that's something to think about for a season review chat. But yeah, I agree with you. Good race. I think he's well set up for next season. If he gets a good enough car, well set up to lead the team. Seems to be pretty much on the ball, didn't make many mistakes. So yeah, I think he should be pleased with sort of how it all ended up today, despite maybe being disappointed with performance.
It's a bold claim from Jensen, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. That's a conversation for the winter, I think. Yeah, that's an interesting one. But yeah, decent stuff from Joy. I can't find his quotes anywhere, his post-race quotes, so that's annoying. But I think, I don't know what to say. It's difficult when I've not got notes. I'll be quite honest about it. This is why the conversation that we had over the winter is about moving these to Monday night or not at all. We'll see about the latter part. I think I'll be lynched if I try and get rid of these for some people in chat, especially CPB. They'll be furious. And Kevin needs to come here for all his Constructors Championship chat. So, that'll be nothing to you, Stuart. Sorry, Kevin's been talking all weekend about how boring the Constructors Championship is. So, I keep winding him up with that one. It doesn't matter. It's not important. It's boring, apparently. So there you go. But they're not really fighting for anything for Mercedes today, are they? So, or this year anymore. They are 4th. That's where they're going to be. But it's good points for him, and I think good prep for next year. Let's say for George. I think he had a great weekend, to be honest. Not amazing, but really, really, really strong and in the mix with some drivers I didn't expect to be in the mix with. Lewis Hamilton said post-race, and I sort of quote, me and this car don't get on. He has not been happy this weekend at all, has he? So some of the things he said, Stuart, really downbeat. I think Ted kept calling him self-motivational, which I think possibly part of that, but really just ready to get these two races out of the way and get ready for a new challenge. So I was hoping for it to go out a bit more of a bang than he is doing, but he's cut a frustrated figure, as the phrase I'd use, and a bit of a frustrating race as well. Just sort of was behind Perez, wasn't he? Couldn't really do anything about him, then fell away a bit, was unhappy with the car, so the car was coming back to him a bit, and then he got his puncture. That put him through the field. Then he got his penalty, or penalties, I believe. Did he get 2 today? I think Hamilton. He definitely got the drive-through, and then a 5-second, didn't he, for something?
False start,
that was it. So just a really frustrating day for him, but actually 12th place, again, a bit like not quite as spectacular as Norris, but a decent comeback, all things considered, but not an epic day, and not where Lewis Hamilton wants to be at all. And just I think the biggest thing for me is the deficit to George generally lately. Whether that's, as you said last week, Stuart, of course you're going to gear your car towards the driver that's staying, so maybe that's part of it. He can't turn it around. He said on Saturday that whatever the problem is, it can't be fixed, so he's expecting the same in Abu Dhabi by the sounds of it. But it's just his comments over the weekend that I think somebody who said themselves, I'm a Verstappen fan and it's sad. It's just a little bit sad to hear him like that. Full stop. Any driver, but certainly any multiple world champion, just being that flat and low about it. You think, oh, sucks a bit. So hopefully he can have a good weekend in Abu Dhabi. But this one's just been, well, a bit shit for him, hasn't it? Really, let's be honest. That's the review.
I get worried about him. He's been downbeat for quite a while now, and he's talking himself down quite a lot. He's talking about mistakes he's making or not being able to kind of be where he wants as a driver, about how he's not being able to deliver in qualifying the way he wants to. We're not at, it's going to sound dramatic, but remember that I started this sentence with we're not at Perez level conversations. But
you're brave.
No, and we're definitely not. But chat. I mean, the media chat, the pundit stuff. They're starting to chat about where is Lewis performance-wise? Where is he in himself? What is going on with him? That kind of thing. And when we're seeing Sky Sports presenters, pundits, asking questions a few weekends in a row now, and the last 2 weekends, Anthony Davidson and him and Jensen this weekend have both started talking about how it felt when they reached a certain age and things started to slip away from them and they weren't as sharp and they started to notice things, being more difficult for them and not quite being a peak performance. When they're starting to have that conversations, I think Lewis needs to sort of deliver. And I don't want him to end this season in a mopey, dejected way, because I want him to be fired up for next year. Because I want that second Ferrari seat to have a good driver in it. I want those two to have a sort of interesting dynamic and a good battle and be fighting for victories and stuff. I think that's good for the sport, good for Ferrari. I think that's going to be good fun. And I worry that Ferrari are quaking in their boots a bit because they're bringing in a driver who seems like he's lost a lot of will right now. So yeah, and there are mistakes being made by Lewis. The full start, silly mistake. Not turning the limiter on, silly mistake. Underperforming in qualifying. There are it's just all starting to sort of happen regularly, and I think we need to see another side of Lewis to be convinced we're not at the tail end of his F1 ability.
Obviously, as a Ferrari fan, I'm hoping that he finds his form next year. I know why you're a bit not nervous, but a bit. I wanted to be clear that you weren't saying it was, but I understand what you're saying about the conversations around him and when even a broadcaster like Sky start to turn those questions around, then maybe there is. But I also quite enjoyed that. I did laugh when you said it, but I muted my mic. So when you said about how Anthony Davidson felt, I thought, I think that's the first time I've heard Anthony Davidson and Lewis Hamilton mentioned in any kind of comparison. And hopefully the last time as well. Love Anthony Davidson. I think probably of everyone at Sky, he's probably the most balanced. I think he's got quite a level head on him. But anyway, let's not get into that. But no, yeah, just I get what you're saying, and I hope that he can find his form again. I hope this is just a case of, we've seen it before. Drivers leave teams; they're not involved in certain meetings, and maybe feels a bit, cut adrift from the team a little bit. I mean, he isn't. They want him there, and they want to celebrate with him, of course. But you know what I mean. He's not going to be at meetings for next year, understandably, and all of that business. So he might feel a bit away from all of that, and the car's going to go towards George naturally, so maybe that's affecting him, or maybe he has hit that wall. I don't know. We'll find out next year. It's going to be fascinating to see him up against Leclerc and see what happens there. But I think it's just a shame to see his time at Mercedes. When you look at the success that they've had together, I mean, what a period. Even the Red Bull dominance. Yeah, they absolutely dominated last season, won all but one race, but ultimately, the Mercedes prolonged dominance, what Lewis Hamilton was able to do, it's such a shame to see it end like this. So I hope Abu Dhabi is different, but we'll see. But it's just a disappointing weekend for him, and it's kind of a shame as well, because Vegas was really strong. I know he had a bit of a rough qualify, but the comeback drive on Saturday night was really, really good, and that felt like a bit more like the Lewis Hamilton we've known over the years. So I wondered if we might have that for the final two, but it's not really worked, and that's a shame. So let's see what people say in chat. Flaming Tornado says washed. Of course, yes. It's not a good look, but like this last year, Verstappen got first in drivers alongside. I don't know, I read that. That's a completely different conversation. Sorry, Dimer, I did put you in there. Yeah. People there says, I don't know how well even a well-performing Lewis could cope with Team Honts. That's absolutely true. Yeah, that's true. Kevin said, this old guy talking is making me sad. Which one? We're both old, Kevin. Let's see. I just trying to see if I said anything. Jonty said about Jenson Button, I don't think he ever reached that point. He got that god-awful McLaren Honda and said, nah, I'm done with this. That's a good point. Yeah. John Jones says
Came
Lewis...
back to Flip Verline over there.
Yeah, that's true. Lewis equals 2020 Vettel, question mark, says John Jones. Yeah, no, that's a good comparison, actually, as well. I know Vettel, Hamilton, let's not have that debate, but the way things ended for Seb at Ferrari a little bit, he was a bit dejected by the end of it, wasn't he? And things weren't quite, he didn't seem quite the happy Seb that he is now and was at times in his career. So that's a fair point. I'm not comparing the two drivers, but the situation, yeah, I kind of get that one. I did see one that I wanted to read as well, and then we'll move on. And I better can't find it now. It was something. Oh, there we go. It's from Livo. It says, do you think a lot of drivers that have that moment in their careers from where they just start declining, and that is what we are seeing since Abu Dhabi 2021, kind of like Seb after Germany 2018, is Livo. So, I mean, it could be the decline, and it could just be that it happens to have happened after such a significant moment. But I hope it isn't, because I think, I kind of made the point on the stream on Saturday that it's not a fair comparison. I know it's very different situations, but Fernando Alonso, put him in the right car, he's still going to deliver. And I kind of feel like if you put Lewis Hamilton in the right car, he's still going to deliver. So I'm not convinced by the age. Obviously, age affects everybody differently, but I'm not convinced by the age argument, to be honest. Again, the right car, Alonso smashes it, not literally. I think Hamilton will do the same.
I think it's fair to say Lewis has never been comfortable really with this era of car, especially the Mercedes, who struggled to make these 2022 onwards ground effecty cars. He's Mercedes haven't really nailed it, and Hamilton has never been comfortable with this car. And maybe Ferrari's approach to it will be different, and he'll have a much better time of it, or maybe it'll all happen in 2026. So it happens. He hasn't been comfortable for a while. We haven't seen him at like full Hamilton controlling a race, even if he's feels in control for third or whatever. Like last weekend, that was a good example of it, as you brought up, and we need to remember. So yeah, I'm not writing him off yet. I'm just pointing out some of the signs. And if we are at that point in his career where he's just starting to tail off a bit, there's no shame in that either, because he's going to be 40 next season. And that was, I know he had a break, but that's when Schumacher came back in for Mercedes when he was, I think, 40 or 41, and clearly not the same as he was at his peak. But again, nothing to be ashamed of. Still had some good results and brought a lot to the team. So we'll see where we are next year as well. But yeah, I think the refresh of moving to a new team and drawing a line under what's been a bad few years will be helpful for him mentally.
Let's move on then. I could sit and waffle this sort of thing all night. It fascinates me. But we'll get on to Alpine then. Pierre Gasly, P5. I mean, come on, Pierre. Steady on. A bit disappointing, obviously, compared to the podium in Brazil, but that's still a cracking result. Esteban Ocon, we'll talk about in a minute again, in case you missed it at the start, but we'll get into that shortly. Pierre Gasly, P5 today. Massive result for Alpine. Moves them ahead of Haas in the Constructors, I believe, by 5 points. I'm going to scroll back to the Constructors. There we go. Yes, indeed, 5 points clear of Haas with 1 to go. That is a huge result. And what a drive as well. Great defensive driving where it was needed to. I kind of made the point about Sainz as well. Not getting through, some good defensive driving. Tough track to overtake on, which will have helped, but just timed everything to perfection today. Pierre kept it clean, kept it tidy, and got the result he thoroughly deserves. So massive for Alpine, massive for him, and what a statement drive, I guess, when your teammate, whether he's got the new parts or not, looks, nothing official, but looks as though he's just done his last race for the team. Well done, Pierre. We'll start with the positive, Stuart. Cracking drive.
Brilliant drive. And actually, when the results came through at the end, I was like, I hadn't really been paying attention to him, to be honest. And then suddenly he was sort of coming to the end of the race and he was in P5. I was a bit like, where did he come from? And the answer is he just drove solidly from a good starting position. They chose the right time to pit the safety car. He didn't lose any time. He had to gain a couple of positions through the pit stops, and had enough pace to hang on to it. Sainz couldn't get past him. He was solidly fifth. He made it work for him. It was a great drive for him. And Gasly has been having some really good Saturdays, or some really good qualifyings. Just to clarify, for quite a while now, and that's like at least put him on good footing to start a race, and sort of let that unfold depending on where the actual car performance is over a race. And from where Alpine have been, these couple of really killer performances in the last couple of races have been a godsend, honestly. Incredible work, and 4 points ahead of Haas. I think that seems 5 points ahead. I mean, considering how many points those teams are likely to get in one race, I think that's probably done it for them. I think that's probably given them 6, which is incredible, honestly. So good for them. Gasly is a great driver, and I'm glad he's able to get some of these points for the team. I mean, what can you really say? He didn't, on my notes, like not, I haven't got loads of moves. He sort of attacked Tsunoda a bit at the beginning and was just there, but was just delivering solid pace, honestly, and just being in the right position at the right time, not losing too much time to the guys ahead. So when they pitted, he was still in it. Yeah, I mean, just another driver who maximized what the car was able to give him today.
John says mega quality from Gasly to give him the chance of his race result. I'll give John the shout out there, but I was just going to say his qualifying the last few weeks has been really impressive too, which of course is putting him in the positions to be able to scoop things up when they happen at the front, or drive exceptionally well in Brazil, or drive brilliantly again today. So Pierre Gasly, absolutely making his point in that team and doing a cracking job. And it's a big moment, like you say. It'll be interesting to see if they do hang on. It depends what Hülkenberg turns up. If Hülkenberg today turns up, maybe Haas won't turn it around. But, Hülkenberg may get his first podium in his last race for Haas.
Stranger things have happened.
In Abu Dhabi? Oh, no. Right, stop. I was just going to say, strange things never happen at Abu Dhabi. Let's move on super quickly from that. Just before we move on to Esteban Ocon, there is a bit of news regarding Sergio Perez. Not the news people are expecting, or want, or maybe don't want, I don't know. the stewards have decided no further action on the incident where he drove into the path of oncoming cars. They say Perez spun and stopped sideways on the right-hand side of the track. The driver then appeared to drive directly across the track at right angles to the oncoming traffic. However, the evidence tabled showed the driver attempted to do a rapid 90-degree clockwise spin, but in doing so experienced clutch failure, which resulted in the car travelling across the track. Whilst this appeared potentially dangerous from the video, the attempted move by the driver was possible to execute under normal circumstances, and only the failure of the clutch caused the reported incident. So no further action on that.
Fair enough.
There you go. Well, they know what they're doing. So Esteban Ocon then. Well, not that much to say about his race, so we can get into the other stuff. Crashed out of turn one. Not really his fault, was it? Hulkenberg lost his car, then crashed into Ocon, who crashed into Colapinto. That was game over, but that was, by the sounds of it, his last run in an Alpine, Stuart. So, first of all, do you think that incident was his fault at turn one? I'd be surprised. But secondly, are you a little surprised at the news, which I will actually... Sorry, Stuart. I've just gone through a question at you, then gone immediately away. But Luke Smith has tweeted to say, where are you, Luke? I've lost you. There we go. Not yet finalised nor official, but as has been reported, everything moving towards Jack Doohan replacing Esteban Ocon at Alpine for Abu Dhabi, meaning Ocon can do the post-race test with Haas. Ollie Oates confirmed there have been talks today and said, quote, I think it suits everybody. So it's not officially official, but it's as it looks like it's happening, which, is a shame. But yes, anyway, sorry, Stuart. I just thought I'd mention that there.
Yeah. I had, before coming onto the stream, I thought it was official because Ted Kravitz was talking as if it was official, but I guess it was still strong hearsay at that point as well. You asked me if it was Ocon's fault for that turn one collision.
Was the accident that was Hulkenberg's fault Ocon's fault?
He definitely shouldn't have been in the way of a sliding Hulkenberg. That seemed incredibly unfair of him. You've always got to leave the space, as someone once said. Very unfortunate for Ocon, and even more unfortunate if that's his parting move for the team. It was a shame, but where did he start? He started 20th, right? So
last 20th and last,
yeah. So it's not like he threw away a Gasly like performance. Primed for some points or anything, but nonetheless, a shame. I guess a shame. I imagine. I'm going to retroactively predict that he would have spent most of the race hovering around 15th. So, yeah.
So I guess we'll move on to the news then that it looks like he's going to be replaced by Jack Doohan. It sounds like it was from what Ted Kravitz said. I've checked the quotes there, and what the information planetf1.com has is, or that we have at planetf1.com, I should say, is that this is essentially he wanted to drive in the post Abu Dhabi test for Haas because he wants to look towards the future. That'd be more important than looking at his time with Alpine. He wants to focus on next season. Spoke to Flavio Briatore, and Flav said, "Okay then," but I think Ted Kravitz worded it. Let me find it again. No, wait. It was something like, "What can you do for me?" or what do we get out of it, basically. And that's where the talk of Doohan taking his place next weekend comes from. It's really harsh on Ocon, but then if he's thinking about the future rather than bothered about Alpine, then I suppose it makes sense for him. But also, big risk for Alpine, surely. Jack Doohan, good driver, a lot of potential. They see a lot in him, but throwing him in that situation with the experience of Hulkenberg and Magnussen at Haas in a fight for, you said you think it might be just about there, Stuart, but you never know, of course, in F1. But in that kind of fight, it's a bit of a risk, isn't it, if they want to get that sixth place sewn up? So, Doohan might turn up and nail it and absolutely smash Gasly and get a top 8 finish and it's all done. But it still seems risky. But a shame for Ocon that his time at Alpine ended like that. But I've got to say, I sort of thought about it before I went live when the countdown was on. I thought, actually, it feels a little bit like this was always going to come at some point in this season, because there was a talk after Monaco, wasn't there, that he was going to get a move to Williams mid-season, or that he was going to get dropped because of what happened with Gasly. So it feels like Alpine and Ocon going their separate ways in season was going to happen at some point, but they've left it till right at the end. So, just a shame it's come to an end that way, but looks like it's going to happen. No more Esty Bestie till testing.
Apparently not. I think this will... I was going to say, will this... giving Doohan a little bit of practice, exposure, um, experience is the word I was trying to go for there. Is going to be helpful, but a shame for Ocon. I'm just looking back over his points recently, and apart from that kind of podium in Brazil, I mean, he scored a point in Belgium, which was like 10 races ago, and then back in Spain, back when Alpine had their little peak. So it's not necessarily that Alpine are like Ocon is our consistent performer. We can't get rid of him now. He's I don't think Haas would get rid of either of their drivers now, because there's a good chance either one of them is going to bring home 1 or 2 points, race on race. We don't know which one it's going to be, but they are fairly consistent. Ocon, maybe they're like, well, is he going to give us any points? We've unsure. I don't know when this decision was made. I'm assuming it was made before this race when they had a 5-point buffer. This conversation about it, but yeah, I mean, I don't feel that particularly strongly about it. I think it's probably best for all involved to sort of get a bit of a move on next season and start integrating with your teams as best you can. I think it makes sense, and there's going to be no one losing particularly from this.
I'll throw another one in there for you before we move on. Alpine have been talking to Colapinto. Could this be a Flavio Briatore getting a bit of a rehearsal in for Jack Doohan and see what he thinks? Because it's been rumoured that Colapinto, that they're going to ditch out. It was rumoured a few weeks ago they were going to ditch Doohan next year despite giving the promotion and putting Colapinto in there. I wonder if Flavio Briatore is thinking, all right, you guys think he's the way to go. Let's see. Let's put him in that car. Just throwing it in there. Also, a conspiracy, by the way. Jonty says, conspiracy! Haas told Ocon to have bad results to help them but Flavio found out and sacked him in secret. There you go. I mean, we all know if there's one thing Flavio hates, it's race fixing, right? So
very vehemently against that, yes.
He's never been a fan of it, or never engaged in it. So anyway, let's not get back ourselves. Yeah, so I think it is a shame for Ocon that it's ended the way it has, but it's not been the best relationship, has it, this season? So see you in testing, because we don't get any Abu Dhabi testing coverage, do we? So we'll see you in testing, Esteban, I guess. Esting.
Yeah, and at least if they meet on track, they'll be in different teams. So
that's true.
They won't both get a what's a nice way of saying this? Dressing down together.
I missed some super chat. Sorry. Thank you to Rixis for your super chat and your support, mate. Really appreciate that. Says rating weird about the race. Still unsure about what happened, but it wasn't bad either. Putting tinfoil hat on, it was to have a title decider in Abu Dhabi ? Ooh, the FIA. No, they'd never do anything like that. Who knows? I don't think so. No, we've been over it with the letter of the law and all of that. So Lyle, a member now for 3 months in a row. Thank you very much. Miles says Lyle, says nice race, good race for Kick 2. Sucks that Checo had a good race going and then the car breaks. Maybe you should be a race official or head of the FIA. No thanks. No thanks. Ferrari win everything, then you'll get some Ferrari international assistance. Johnny Barrio, thank you for your super chat. Says Pierre Gasly's greatest hits volume 1. Yes, I'm the great defender. There you go. Thank you, Johnny, for your super chat. And Rixis again for another super chat says Saron road to bet 24th in 20 drivers championship. Oh, that's Sargent. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, there is also, of course, the risk this weekend. Rixis and Stuart will love this. That if Doohan finishes well, maybe 10th place, that Bottas will get dumped back down to 23rd in the championship. At least he's not going to be 24th. That's something.
I was going to say that as well. I was like, if Doohan comes in and puts it back down to 23rd, I'm going to be furious. I haven't been as animated on a sofa watching F1 as I was, and we'll get to this, just watching those Saubers perform today. And we'll get to that. But I'm going to be so mad if Bottas gets pushed down again. But at least he won't be last. He can't be last now unless Sargent returns.
And you never know. Red Bull might need a driver. Logan Sargent could be the answer. He's not the answer. Yeah, we'll pause here because I might do another timestamp actually, because we've talked quite a bit about those two teams there. So please do drop a like if you could. We're 11 away from 100. That'd be amazing if we get to 100. That means all streams have done triple digits this weekend. So please do drop a like on the stream. That'd be massively appreciated. And subscribe as well if you are new to the channel. We've got the preview on Thursday and, of course, then the qualifying watch-along on Saturday and the race watch-along on Sunday. Lots still to come this season, of course. But we shall move on to Aston Martin. Yeah.
Race
We've
of two
moved on to
halves.
Aston Martin. Yay. Great result for Fernando Alonso. Actually, 7th place today in that tractor. What a performance. In fact, we're kind of into a couple of teams here. We're going to be saying this. So, really good stuff from Fernando today. Obviously, I have no notes, so I will read his sound bites. He says, a very good Sunday for us, finishing in 7th and with 6 points scored. The car felt a little stronger than yesterday, and we capitalised on some of the action ahead of us with some retirements and penalties, but we were in the right place at the right time tonight. It's a good time to get some points on the board for the team, and hopefully we can carry this form into Abu Dhabi and finish the season on a high. And Lance Stroll said the car wasn't feeling right from the start of the race. Well, yeah. I like the front left at turn 2, which was strange because it's not really a corner you break that much for. Then at turn 5, I made contact with Albon, which was completely unintentional. I wasn't trying to race him. I was just trying to hold my line on the inside of the corner, but I picked up huge levels of understeer. I think maybe my tyres weren't working properly because I couldn't do anything about it. It's a shame to retire from the race, but we'll go again in Abu Dhabi next weekend. But yes, disappointed for Lance Stroll. I mean, that was a very quickly on that slam dunk penalty for the incident with Albon. I don't think there's much debate in that one. Whether his car felt weird or not, he's understeered into him and caused the accident. So that's always going to be a penalty. I think he got 10 seconds for that, I think. So
That's right.
Not a massive shock on that one. As for Fernando Alonso, just my phrase of the day, cracking drive, 7th place. And I tell you what as well, actually, he was kind of in the scrap with people, but he was not comfortable. But he was a bit like Verstappen. He wasn't comfortable, but I never thought that he was really under too much threat from the likes of, Zhou and Magnussen and co that he was racing. I think he drove really, really nicely today to get that 7th point. And 7th place, some big points on the board for Aston Martin in what feels like his first points for a while. I was saying that as I hit Google and go to the trusty old Wikipedia, but I feel like it's been a while since we've seen him. It's going to be last weekend, isn't it? Singapore. Wow.
So he's had 4 no points in a row until today.
So just a really good drive and deserves the point. So well done to him. But I'm going to pass to you, Stuart, and hope that you've got some really interesting notes there on Fernando today. But good stuff.
Yeah, actually quite an interesting race from Alonso. He was at 8th at the first restart. Lap 6, but then dropped 4 places down to 12, and I was like, here we go. Another anonymous Aston race of Fernando struggling. Even on lap 9, if you remember, he came on the radio and was like, I cannot believe it. I can only do Mario's voice. 2 years. Mamma mia. 2 years, the same problem on the straights. Having a bit of a sort of GP2 throwback. He ran wide. I'm not sure which corner. It was one of the long right-handers. If that narrows it down, and came back onto the track, sort of into the path of Magnussen. But that was noted, but not investigated. So he seemed to be having a little bit of a mare. Had a great overtake on Tsunoda on lap 14. He went around the outside of turn 1 and then just kept it on the inside of turn 2. That was good for P11. And then they changed him onto hards, and then made the very clever move of changing it back onto the mediums again during the safety car. So he was able to capitalize on some better rubber, and he just basically used that to perfection for the rest of the race. He came out of that second safety car period in sort of, what was he, 9th on the track, and just kind of worked his way up. It was, good race from him, and he seemed pretty happy. He kept Russell behind him for several laps until that kind of safety car period. Poor Russell. But those 2 cars are not alike in performance. Russell was on fresh tires as well, and Alonso wasn't. So that was pretty impressive as well. I think he overtook Magnussen in the pit lane as well.
Yes,
wheel
I
to
recall
wheel.
That, yes.
Which canny, but slightly dodgy. There were no people in the pit lane ready for cars, so it was pretty safe enough. That wasn't brought up. So all in all, great race for Alonso. I think we saw a fighty, happy Alonso that we've seen not so much of recently.
Yeah, I did say on the stream as well, doing the watch along, it was a very GP2 engine call about that, wasn't it? On the straights. But we'll get to Sauber in just a second. Just some more huge breaking news that's just going to blow your minds. Do you remember at the start of the race or early on when you were telling me in chat in the watch along that Oscar Piastri driven erratically into the pit lane after his reconnaissance lap?
I do.
Yeah. He's got a warning. 6, 7, 8, 5 hours after the fact. Because, why not? Driver explained 2 cars in front of him were travelling very slowly, wished to overtake them. Team provided telemetry that was not travelling at excessive speed. Oscar Piastri wasn't. The driver was in control at all times. Although manoeuvre appeared erratic on the video, we did not determine that it was dangerous. However, such erratic manoeuvres should be avoided. Hence, the penalty of a formal warning is applied. Oh, Oscar! Oh, ban him for life. That was it. I mean, could that not have been decided at the time? Really? Anyway, I don't know what data and telemetry, I suppose, but there you go. Yeah, good stuff, Fernando. Lance, I was going to say season's fizzling out, but did it ever fizzle? Really? There were some moments for Lance. We'll do that in the post-season stream, I'm sure. But Stuart, you'll be delighted to hear, and I'm sure Pascal is as well. He's got his super chat in nice and early. That was a drum roll, not me collapsing.
No, not nice and early. This is where they finished, Sean. This is the correct place to talk about Sauber.
Zhou Guanyu finished in 8th place, so much so I applauded him across the line. I was so happy for him. 8th place for Zhou today. 11th place for Bottas, which doesn't sound spectacular, but it does mean he moves up to 22nd in a 20-car championship. So that's something for Bottas. But both Saubers this weekend drove really well. And I said it yesterday, and I'm going to brag because I can. I said it yesterday. There's pace in them there, Saubers. Whatever that was. Watch them. They could have points this weekend. They've got a chance. They've got some speed in that car, and Zhou Guanyu delivered it today. Yes, there were only 15 finishes. There'll be the people like to play it down. Oh, only 15 cars finished, but he was in the mix before that. He was in the mix today for points. Maybe not 8th, but he was in the mix for points. Absolutely cracking drive from him. Great drive as well from Valtteri Bottas. And I'm just over the moon that every team has scored and that Zhou Guanyu has picked up those big points. And it's not just 1 point for Sauber. It's not a crafty fastest lap and 10th place. It's a really, really good performance across the weekend and a really strong finish. 6 seconds lead, 7 seconds to go Magnussen. Only 5.5 behind Fernando Alonso. His teammate was 11th. Fantastic. I'm just so happy. And Pascal says you'll be no great surprise. He's very happy. You get I'll like your comment as well. Says fantastic day for Sauber. 4 points as Zhou driver today. Want to come back from 2 laps down in Zandvoort to points in Qatar. It has been a tough season, but the future looks better now. Thanks for your 5 streams. You're welcome, Pascal. Yes, 5 streams. That's a lot of streaming. Thank you for your super chat, mate. And I'm really happy. I was thinking about you all race watching Zhou there and Bottas. So yeah, great stuff. And Stuart, just. What a performance. What a performance.
Honestly, very, very impressive. I'm glad for a couple of things. I'm glad, maybe unfairly, I'd said quite a few times, I feel like they've just written the season off and they're coasting to the end and they're kind of looking forward to next season. Clearly not. They're bringing things. Zhou himself said after the race that, there's a lot of stuff you don't see that's happening behind the scenes. Everyone's working really hard and trying to get something out of this car and they were able to deliver today. 12th and 13th in qualifying. I also was saying, it just takes a couple of weird things happening in front of them for them to be able to just take advantage. They were in position to be ready to get points, possibly if they were on the table. I was worried they'd just sort of drop back through the field because Sauber have struggled, but actually no, they had some good pace. Bottas had some things to tackle with, but still he was able to keep working his way back up. And Zhou very convincingly held on to 8th place. Alonso got past him on the medium tires. Okay, fair enough. But after that, solidly 8th. I was happy for him. I was worried, at the restart when he was in that sort of 9th place, I think he was, or 10th. And I was like, is this really going to last? And I really shouldn't have. I stopped worrying after a few laps. Bit of a shame for Bottas, obviously, that he was in 10th for 1 lap. He was on 10th on merit by overtaking Tsunoda on track, and that was very exciting. He got into a points paying position by making an overtake on another car. Obviously, Norris was on fresh tires coming through the field, so that that didn't last very long. But that was exciting too. If they go out if they have a little party tonight, I won't be surprised. That's great for them. Obviously, it's a bit of a jump for them to be able to move anywhere in the constructors, and Bottas wouldn't have been able to get any higher than 22nd, even if he got 10th place or 9th place. He, fourth, 4 points is the next place up. But yeah, very exciting. I don't know what else to say. I'm very happy they are still pushing as hard as they can and they're able to deliver this kind of thing. I don't know what they're able to do next weekend, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. They've got points as a team, and both drivers are now off the bottom.
It's just of course, yeah, Bottas had to deal with Lawson, didn't he? Had the incident with Lawson, which will have cost him some time as well there. And a few people saying Davis had made some good moves around Tsunoda too. So they were racing really hard today, but it was just the pace was a surprise this weekend. And it was quite clear yesterday that they had the speed today to challenge for points, but I would never have put them P8 today. In fact, actually, early doors, I think Bottas did drop back quite a bit early on, didn't he? And I thought, oh, here we go. They're going to be last on the list again. But no. Just absolutely brilliant. I think, Zhou deserves all the credit. I think Bottas gets credit for recovering from that incident with Lawson, but also, being in the mix for the pace. But I would have got the press release because I'd be interested to know what Zhou's saying because, obviously happy for Bottas, but, I think Zhou's had a lot of stick, and I think some of it's been justified, but I think some of it very much hasn't. So it was nice to see him get a great result today. So Bottas said today was frustrating as everything seemed to go against me after a good start. The incident with Lawson cost me track positioning, gave me floor damage, and from there I was on the back foot. Zhou was ahead of me and therefore had the first pick on strategy. The team pitted me early to learn about the performance of the hard tyre. Oh, there we go. And the time of the safety car couldn't have been worse. I finished 11th in the end, so close to the points, which makes it all the more disappointing. So he's saying there actually that safety car timing hampered him, the Lawson incident hampered him, and the strategy hampered him. So actually 11th place for Bottas is pretty bloody spectacular with all that considered. Well, there you go. Zhou starts his quotes with, what a race. I'm incredibly happy for the entire team. Today was all about delivering a strong performance, and we did just that. We had great pace, stayed clean, and executed our strategy perfectly, making overtakes when it mattered most. It's a massive boost for everyone involved. Finally scoring some points feels like a huge reward for all the hard work and resilience we've shown this season. Given where we started, the challenges we faced, the results mean so much more. Shout out to the team for delivering a great race. It's just nice to have a genuinely nice story to talk about, actually, and not just all controversy and drama. And as I felt during that race, what on earth is going on? But yeah, good stuff from Sauber. Well done to them, and well done to Zhou Guanyu. And 13 points to Williams. It's unlikely. In fact, nigh on impossible that's going to change. But again, a bonkers race in Abu Dhabi. You never know, but it's unlikely. I think Zhou might be able to overhaul Colapinto in the Drivers' Championship if he gives a damn about P19. I imagine he doesn't, but that's possible. Fend off Liam Lawson to keep himself on the first two of my tables because that's what will matter to him, that he looks good on the stream. So there we go. But yeah, good stuff from Sauber. Last of the point scoring teams then are Haas. Haas. Kevin Magnussen in 9th place for, again, Haas. Yeah, I've got nothing on Magnussen, really. I think okay out there. Probably, I got to find his quotes when you're talking, Stuart, but probably a bit disappointed that, obviously, Alpine have taken the march in the constructors because, as I'm sure we all know, Kevin Magnussen will really care about that. But I will say my favourite moment, Stuart, while I go find the quotes from the race, was Kevin Magnussen, his little battle with Alex Albon round the outside, and then just went fuck off over team radio and disappeared. Love it. I'm going to miss him next year. I really am.
He's certainly got style sometimes, has he? He's got style and spunk. Yeah, I don't have a lot on Magnussen. I think a lot of the things were him being overtaken, unfortunately. But I think one of the drivers that suffered from taking his pit stop before the safety car period, unfortunately. So that put him a little bit on the back foot. But he kind of worked his way forward through that. Got a couple of points. Benefited, I think, from Norris, obviously, and Hamilton having a mare of things. But another couple of points aren't to be sniffed at. That's a Haas classic this year, just getting a couple of points every race. And again, I think a notable thing was just him going side by side with Alonso in the pit lane. But yeah, again, I think another kind of just a Magnussen at Haas race where they performed well for the midfield team, got another couple of points. Probably absolutely kicking themselves. Well, not kicking themselves, kicking something though, that Gasly was able to get fifth, because actually this is the kind of result they without that Alpine being ahead of them, they needed just to kind of like put another couple of points on Alpine and secure sixth. But unfortunately, Alpine did even better than them today, which they probably didn't expect. So yeah, just a kind of solid middling day for them that we've come to expect.
It's funny actually with Haas, because I'm just looking now. I wanted to do a check before I said it because it's just how it felt. But apart from Mexico, it's just always either one or the other in the points. So it's either the car is just really bad and every weekend the driver really gives it everything and pulls it off, or there's more speed in that car than maybe we realise. Because I'm just looking now, it was, one of them scored in Italy, in Baku, in Singapore, in the USA, in Vegas, in Qatar. They're picking up consistent points, but not really. In fact, only 3 times this season has been a double points finish. So that just, I don't know, it just felt like it was a bit... As you were talking there, I thought, I always feel like we're talking about Hülkenberg in the points or Magnussen and never both, and it's a rare thing. So there we go, just some info. Why not? Kevin Magnussen says, I'm super, I need to super glued then, super gutted. Kevin Magnussen was super glued to the safety car. Super gutted with the safety car coming out. It completely ruined the day for me. It was going well and we had a good beginning to the race, but I just wish that safety car hadn't come out because it really screwed us. There's still one race to go and we'll go into it giving everything. He doesn't say a lot, does K-Mag, does he? What he does say tends to be gold, but ruined his race and he finished 9th. So where does he think he could have been? I mean, surely Zhou and maybe even Alonso for him today. So Hülkenberg, turn 1 was messy, understatement of the season there, I think, from Nico Hülkenberg. It was all happening very quickly. It didn't go well, but I didn't have any damage, so I was able to continue. Had a puncture. Had a long stint in traffic and then was unlucky with the safety car as others got a free stop. At the restart, I lost in a big way in a high-speed corner, so it wasn't our day. First half of the weekend went well. Second half didn't. I think the performance in the car isn't bad, but it's close and others around us have good performance, so now we need to reset and go again. For the first corner incident, Hülkenberg, car got away from him, spun, hit Ocon, who then hit Colapinto, and that was game over. First, lap 1, first corner incident. Stewart's noted it, didn't investigate. It tends to be the way at that first corner at the start, but he did eliminate 2 cars, but there you go. But then the mistake and spin into the gravel is just a really... I mean, he said it, his quote said, didn't he? A weekend of 2 halves, basically. Great in the sprint and in sprint quali, and then dreadful in Grand Prix qualifying, and the race couldn't have gone really any worse for him for the Hulk.
Pretty much, yeah. I think starting on the hards didn't help. He was the only driver to start on the hard tyre. Clearly, they weren't in the zone he would have wanted them in, like the mediums would have been. So a little bit more slippery. Classic kind of turn 1, lap 1 incident. Everything's a little bit crowded, so any mistake can have quite dire consequences, as they did today. And I think without cars on his outside, I think he would have had a little bit of a tank slapper and then carried on. But it just so happened there was a car there and another car next to that. So ended up being a bit calamitous. Kind of agree. Yeah, Stuart's not looking at that again. Like I say, it's just one of those things that happen, and things were a little bit more slippery than he expected, and the track was crowded. And I think it's worth contrasting that with Stroll, who did get a penalty, and the stewards noted specifically, it was lap 1, but actually there were no cars all around, so it was just kind of like an incident on any other lap, and that's why we're penalising you. So other than that, just a disappointing. There can only be one Haas per race, and it wasn't his turn.
Shame, but it's 2 points. It keeps things interesting for Abu Dhabi at least. Without those 2 points, that's a 7-point gap, isn't it? So that suddenly starts to feel it is bigger. It is literally bigger, sure, but there you go. But you know what I mean. It feels a bit more insurmountable for Haas. Let's do the last 2 teams then. RB, not much to say. Tsunoda 13th, Lawson in 14th place. Both seem to be involved in something at some point. Lawson had an incident, of course, as we've already talked about, with Bottas, there we go. And Tsunoda seemed to be involved in a lot of overtaking, but it felt a bit more like he was being overtaken rather than doing all the overtaking. But there's good scraps out there for Yuki to be involved in. But I just don't think the pace was generally there from RB today. And then they went and switched to soft tyres for some reason 17 laps from the end, even though there'd been zero evidence all weekend they were going to do anything, and they just their lap times just seem to plummet so quickly. I did say keep an eye on them, maybe those soft tires, they might do something, but then the lap times were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, crazy times off the pace in the end. So a bit of an odd call, but I suppose when you've got nothing to lose, you may as well take the gamble. You never know. But yeah, that's my words on RB. All of them, all 25 and probably more than that.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add, really. I think they just had a bad day. They didn't have the pace. Most of my race notes are about Tsunoda being overtaken. Yeah, I don't know much more to add. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because they are one of these teams involved in the scrap for sixth, and today they just didn't arrive, did they? I pretty much guarantee they're out of that battle. I think they're going to be eighth. Lawson had his incident, of course. I'm now like, what is the Lawson incident? Oh, yes, and now I remember. There was a lot that happened. I'm not going to lie. My little icon that I write down for like when things are investigated and stuff is all over this. The sort of Lawson Bottas thing, which I think I need to see again. I don't have many opinions on that because it kind of faded into everything else. But yeah, I kind of bad day at the office, didn't really work out. I don't understand the switch to softs at all. Because we had that sort of experiment in the sprint yesterday and it showed how naff they were. I don't know what they expected to happen today, but I guess when you're basically nowhere, you may as well give something a go.
Yeah.
Who knows? On a like slightly tangential note, I don't know if it's the same for you on my multi-viewer kind of race tracker thing, because they went through the pits several times during the virtual safety, during the safety car, the tire history data is completely buggered. Some of these drivers, if you add up how many laps they did on each tire, they did like 70 lap races, which it's thrown me for a loop on trying to keep track of what everyone's done. But yeah, that's all I've really got to add. There's, they were pretty much anonymous having a crap race today is what I've got to say for RB.
Yeah, I was just going to say the pits. I mean, George Russell, according to this, finished fourth with a four-stopper. He didn't stop 4 times. He went through the pits 2 or 3 times, didn't they? So, I know what you mean. And a tyre day, I've not even looked at it. There's just no point. So, but yeah, no, disappointed for RB. But I agree with you now. I mean, they're on 46 points. Alpine are on 59. That's that done, I think, barring some kind of... Well, they'd need the same as Sauber, wouldn't they, to overhaul Williams? So, yeah, it's not going to happen. So, that's a shame. That's a shame for them, but... I think they'll still be on the grid next year. They'll be fine, I'm sure. And last, and very much least today, to be honest, Williams, Albon, 15th for him. Colapinto caught up in the incident, of course, in turn 1 again. Hülkenberg into Ocon into Colapinto. Poor Franco. Poor Williams mechanics. This time it had nothing to do with their driver. He was just on the outside minding his own business, and before he knew it, he got a face full of Ocon. So there we go. That was... I'm going to leave that as it was. That was kind of it for Colapinto today. Just 1 point to make interesting. I don't know if I mentioned this in one of the streams, but I may have done this weekend. If I have, I apologise, but I'll repeat it for those who may not have heard it. What could keep Perez in that seat is a lack of options, because Colapinto today, through no fault of his own, retired. Lawson and Tsunoda were also pretty dreadful. So, there you go. Just a point. I know Perez retired as well, but I'm just saying. Random point. Alex Albon, I've got very little on notes on him, but thankfully... Because one thing Williams are very fast at, it's getting their press releases out. So thank you. I don't know if they pre-write them. I don't know. But yes, let's see what I say that very quick, but I can't seem to load it. There we go. I'll try it once. So Alex Albon said it was a tricky day. We're a little bit in no man's land, most of the race being towards the back, and we were struggling for pace. Safety car made it interesting. We took the opportunity to put on softs. It was an optimistic gamble, but one worth taking because of the pace we had. We knew that on every safety car restart, the first lap was the only one I could overtake on, and so we made up some positions, and we were in the front, in the points for a bit, but we were relying on another safety car which didn't come, so then the tyres started degrading quite badly. I was going to say, actually, with RB, maybe there was an element of, because we were kind of in that phase where it felt like safety cars were breeding safety cars, maybe that's what RB and Williams were thinking. That sort of confirms that there might be another one to put on another set of tyres and that sort of thing, but not sure how that would work. And Colapinto says, disappointed to be taken out in turn 1 after trying to leave enough gap on the inside. In the wrong place at the wrong time was nothing I could do to avoid it. Quite frustrating, as the race had plenty of opportunities to make things happen that could have put us in the fight. At the end of the day, it's part of racing, unfortunately. And the Williams mechanics went, oh no, not again. That's not what they say in the press release, but yeah. Anything on Williams, Stuart?
Yeah, considering Williams are already crying into their wallets over an unspeakable amount of accidents this season, I did go into this race thinking, well, it's really hard to have an accident here because the track's really, the ground is really big. You're quite far from a wall most places. So the Williams today decided to just go crashing into other cars. Yeah, effectively, Pinto, Albon, Stroll hit Albon hit Magnussen. It was just all kicking off.
Luckily, it was Albon's mirror that started the chaos, of course.
Yes, mirror went flying off. God knows how much that costs. Yeah, kind of a messy race all round, really. Most of my notes, apart from like hitting and being hit by other cars, are again them being overtaken. Albon was kind of nowhere at the end and just got overtaken by everybody and then got his 10-second penalty. They've not had a good run last few races, actually. I think 4 races in a row, no points all round for any of the drivers. They're kind of solidly where they are in the championship, so it doesn't really matter, I guess. And again, I think trying not to crash the car is going to be priority number 1, despite their best efforts. Yeah, like drivers like Colapinto, I think haven't really had. Specifically, Colapinto hasn't had a chance to shine as much as he did in his first few races with Williams in the last 4. I'm sure there's a lot of negotiating going on behind the scenes, even if he ends up with like a third driver role or somewhere, just getting embedded into a team in a reserve role. But it's just not been a good run of late.
No.
Even if discounting all the accidents, I guess. Hopefully they'll have a good race at Abu Dhabi, but I think we've said that for like the entire midfield, and they can't all score points. So yeah, not much more else to sell, lady. I think they need to stop hitting things. That's going to be my advice for the next race.
Red G says, had the race director done his job, Williams could have had that mirror handed back to them. Is this yours? Basically. That picture there, I sorry, 5 streams, maybe that's what it is. All I can see there is Ocon saying to Colapinto, can't park there, mate. Anyway, yes, so we'll leave it there on the run through. Very quickly then, driver of the day. Chat, give me one surname in the chat. I suspect I know which way this is going to go, but we'll give you all a shout out anyway. Who is your driver of the day? Officially, it was Zhou Guanyu. Stuart, who was your driver of the day? Possibly the most pointless question I've asked all season.
I mean, it's not open and shut because Gasly had an amazing race as well. I am going to give it to Zhou because I was so delighted. And they had to put, he had to put a lot of work in to make sure that car gets in the points. He didn't put a foot wrong, I don't think. I think he absolutely delivered the maximum of that car. I'm going to give it to Zhou. I don't think it's all going to go Zhou's way, though, because there were some good performances there, like Gasly and so on. But yeah, I mean, you got to give it to Zhou, really. Great bringing points for that team at last.
And let's not forget as well, this will reek of bias, Max Verstappen too. Drove extremely well today for the win. We'll not forget Max, of course. But, if you're going Zhou, I'll go Gasly then. That made that easy, didn't it? I think both were extremely strong today. You could throw Max in there as well for taking the win. And obviously the turnaround for Red Bull. But I think, even Zhou across the whole weekend actually has impressed me. So maybe I should be picking him. But if you've gone for Zhou, I'll go for Gasly for every reason we've talked about in this stream. But just trying to think if there's anybody else who could give a shot. Alonso, you could pop him in the mix, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
As I've already said, Verstappen. Russell could have been one of the drivers of the weekend if he'd made top 3, but didn't quite work out for him today. Yeah, there's a few in there. And obviously, we know Sergio Perez obviously gets a mention. Where are we? So, yeah, Max says Michael Schumacher. Oh, for God's sake. The Zhou puns on the stream earlier were so good. Vesk says Hamilton. Johnny Barrio says Gasly. Red G says Zhou. Sighted Canvas says Zhou. Ayinka says Alonso. Brad says Max. JS says Zhou. Michael Ellis says Zhou. No Google, not going to give you my name. Go Fish says Stoffel, of course. Benjamin says Zhou. CPB says Verstappen. Kaori says Zhou. M says Paul Aron. I tell you what, very quickly, sorry for spoilers, but Abu Dhabi F2 title finale next weekend, half a point in it with 2 races to go, a sprint and a feature. Definitely tune in for that. That is going to get spicy. Richie says Zhou. Neelish says Jazly. Nice. Max Chilton has popped up in the chat. Not actually him, but Gabriel says Max Chilton. Charles says Stoffel as well. Daryl says Zhou. Nick says Zhou. Brad says the safety car driver. David says Zhou. Gasly and Max close 2nd and 3rd. The Max says Stoff as well. Gabriel says Norris needs a serious shout. No, I'm sure there's a bit tongue-in-cheek there, surely. Lee says Zhou, but also Gaz, Alonso and Verstappen. Emma Harati says Bottas. I nearly said Bottas, as an honourable mention, because actually without that incident with Lawson and the time of the safety car, he was also having a cracking race, but overshadowed a bit by his teammate there, I think. Sighted Canvas says Carlos, forgot about him. Yeah. Pascal says Zhou, Alonso, Gasly. Diamond says, I think Gasly is a fair shout. Showtime says Kaori. Sponge says Red Bull has 8 titles, not 6. No, that's team title, Sponge. So Constructors titles, they've got 6, not 8. They've got 8 drivers, 4 for Vettel, 4 for Verstappen, obviously, but only 6 for the teams. Special mention as well for Abby Pulling, says Red G. Absolutely, yes, very true. Won the F Academy, F1 Academy this weekend. No, you're all right, Sponge. I'm happy to clarify that for you. And TFFW says Albon's mirror. It did give us all the excitement, didn't it? So, yes, there we go. Very quick as well, the poll. Thanks to everyone who voted in that one. I asked you to rate the race. What did you click, Stuart, out of interest? On the poll at the start, if you did.
Got to press the button if I want to talk. I clicked okay, is what I went for. I wasn't wowed, and I think a lot of the excitement came from weirdnesses rather than necessarily racing. But yeah, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, it's not an option, obviously, but it was one of those races where it was good in parts, okay in others, and a bit mediocre elsewhere, wasn't it? It was a bit of a weird one. So okay is probably about right. I'm not going to say great, but there were parts of it that were good and parts of it that were only okay. So maybe go-K? Maybe. Oh, good.
I think it was probably as good a race as we could have got with this track, which I don't think is particularly suited to these cars. I think
it's a bike track, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think we're sort of on borrowed time. I think.
Well, John Jones says it was Joe-K. You see, we love that.
That's good.
So 42% he said good, 23% said great, 22% said okay, and 12% said bad, not back. I don't think I'm going to do a Q&A today, which will go down like a lead balloon, I'm sure, but I have been live throughout the weekend, and I imagine the questions that you've asked are still going to come up again, and they'll just be the same thing, repeat myself. And we have actually been going for very nearly 2 hours because it took that long to get through everything, because Sean has no notes, so waffles in place of having notes, which isn't ideal, I know, but that's I've said it before, that's the problem when you do the watch-alongs and the race reactions. I kind of feel like it has to be one or the other on the day, so we'll see what happens next season. But we are going to have the race reaction next Sunday, of course, for Abu Dhabi, so that should be a good one. Are you, I think you said you were with me for the final 3, so you should be with me for Abu Dhabi, Stuart, unless you're off on holiday early, because you don't want to see Ferrari win the Constructors next weekend.
I'll be there. I will be there. Let's hope it's a a good Abu Dhabi. It's the hit rate isn't amazing, but there's still plenty on the table. I'm really interested to see, especially how that top spot for titles for the title goes, but also the sixth spot as well. There's and we've got resurgent drivers all over the place looking to just grab some points before they move on or head into next year. I think there's a lot of interesting things to pay attention to next week. But to answer the actual question you asked, I will be there.
Yes. Yeah, no, I obviously I'm excited for what might happen with Ferrari, but I've really got invested this last few weeks in the battle for P6. Like it matters really for the teams. It's a lot of money, but kind of from a fan perspective, it's probably not that exciting for most. But I've been quite invested in that, so it was quite, in some ways, a shame that Alpine did so well today, because now it's kind of sort of put a bit of a dampener on it for the finale. But at least we have officially got a Constructors title fight for Abu Dhabi. Charles says season reaction stream after Abu Dhabi week. I have nothing confirmed. I think we were discussing the Wednesday after Abu Dhabi for a season reaction stream, just because I go away on the 16th on Hollybobs. Oh, I said Hollybobs. Ask my mum. Oh, God.
Unbelievable,
unforgivable that is. So yeah, possibly the 11th. I'll have to double check with Stuart and everybody else, but I haven't confirmed that with anybody yet. I'm still umming and ahhing. So yeah. Anyway, thank you, Stuart. Planning the rest of the year already. Thank you so much for today, Stuart. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Sorry if I've been a bit waffly and you've had to do the heavy lifting with the notes, but that's kind of unfortunately the way it goes with watch-alongs and that. I can't write notes and commentate as well. It's kind of tricky to do, but I appreciate the support and the help with that. And on to Abu Dhabi. One more. 24 in 24. Good Lord. Oh, hang on. No, stop. Stuart. Wait, sorry. 24 races in 2024. If this Ocon news is true, that's 24 drivers as well. There you go.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Do you care?
I do kind of like stuff like that. I like a little alignment of the numbers, so that'll be fun. It has felt like 24 races, hasn't it? So ready for a little bit of a break. I think the drivers and clearly the race director is as well. Everybody seems a little bit sleepy. But yes, I will see you next week. Thank you for this. Before next year, I'm going to find a way of making my notes easier to kind of transfer into streamable talking points. I'm still it's a fine art, isn't it? Especially for you when you can't actually make notes when you're doing race reactions. There's a I'm waffling even now. You're trying to say goodbye, and I'm just waffling.
3 hours later. Anyway, we'll have to go. Something I phoned to my mum.
No, you hang up.
Well, not quite that with my mum, but yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for having me over. I will see you next week.
Yes, see you next week. Thank you very much, Stuart. I'm sure we'll talk before then, but yeah, next Sunday for the finale.
Yes. Goodbye.
Bye. Just go. Leave. Cheers, Stuart. Thank you again. Thank you to Stuart. Thank you, of course, to you guys for tuning in too. I don't know what I'm doing there. Once again, just very, very quickly, apologies for no Q&A today. I'm sure you can understand, given that we've been live for pretty much the whole weekend, it feels like. So no point covering the same ground again. We'll do a big Q&A next Sunday. Why not? Because I'm sure we'll be able to fit that in there, and we can do that in the quali watch along as well. But thank you for all your support this weekend. Thanks for everyone that's subbed. Thanks to all the new people that have joined. Great to have you here. Thank you for your likes as well. Please drop a like before you go, of course. And we'll be back to the normal streams for next weekend. So I will be video out, of course, on Thursday for the preview and the final tyre talk of the season or ever. We shall see. Tease. We shall see. Maybe they should get their own series. Forget being part of the preview, just a video for tyre talk. But anyway, and then of course we'll be live for the qualifying watch along about half an hour before the session starts on Saturday. Then live again about half an hour before the race on Sunday for the race watch along, and then again a couple of hours after the race, an hour and a half for the race reaction with Stuart. Don't forget as well, for the latest news and reaction to Formula 1, then head on over to planetf1.com. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.